Before we begin, we want to acknowledge that some stories and discussions in this episode of Radiant Resilience may touch on sensitive and potentially triggering topics. These may include themes of cancer diagnosis and treatment details, medical trauma, emotional distress and fear around mortality, financial hardship related to medical bills, infertility, and menopause due to cancer treatment. Our goal is to share real life experiences in a respectful and empathetic manner, offering insights into the complexities of the human spirit and the journey towards resilience. However, we understand that some content might be difficult for listeners. We encourage you to prioritize your well being and discretion when deciding to listen. Please remember this podcast is not a substitute for professional advice or support. If you find yourself needing assistance, we urge you to seek help from qualified professionals or trusted support systems. Your mental and emotional health is important to us. Thank you for your courage and for joining us in a space of understanding and compassion. Welcome back, everyone, to Radiant Resilience. I'm really excited for this conversation today because I have my dear friend, Paige Heins, who's here with me. So, Paige was a hairstylist with me for a long time. Well, we didn't work together, but we've both been hairstylists for a long time. And about a year ago, Paige got diagnosed with cancer. And so I asked her to come on here and tell us her story and share her experience. And yeah, so we're going to get all that. How are you doing, Paige?
Good. How are you?
Good. Thanks so much for coming on here and chatting about this. I know it's a sensitive topic and you just recently got through a lot of it. Yeah. So, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very good. I just officially was told I was in remission last Wednesday. So,
Yay!
officially done with the whole journey and all the baloney. I still will have follow up appointments, but no more chemo, no more anything nuts.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride, and I know most of this wild ride, but I'm gonna let you tell the listeners your wild ride, and then we'll go from there. And who knows, maybe there'll be a few things that I learn along the way that I didn't know. But it's also been like watching you go through this, and I don't know, it's been a wild, crazy ride, and I just cannot believe that, especially someone of your age too, that has had to go through all this hard shit and the emotions that have come up with it. And so I'd really like to shed some light too on that aspect of it because it interrupted a whole bunch of your life too. And I mean it does that I probably when you get cancer when you're old too, but like in very different ways. So why don't you go ahead and tell us about like when you first got diagnosed and that whole experience and then we'll go from there.
Okay. Yeah. So, basically, I had, oh, geez, I'll try to be straight on all the dates. I think it was June 2nd. I had a golf ball sized lump pop up right here, which now you can see my scar where they've cut me open twice in the same spot. But just one morning, a lump was there out of nowhere. It was very hard. You couldn't move it. Like when you pushed on it, it wasn't going anywhere, which now I'm educated that is a much higher concern because it's more of tumor if it's not moving and it's a hard, immovable lump.
Okay.
Whereas if it was like soft, it's probably something else. I did not know that. But luckily, my sister's a nurse. So I got her on FaceTime like immediately. And I was like, what is this? Is this normal? And she was like, that's not normal. You need to see a doctor. So
Mm.
I got into the doctor. I think I wasn't supposed to get in for another week, but she had a cancellation. I was literally in within the next, I want to say 2 days. It was very fast. And when I walked in, it was just my like general practitioner. The first thing out of her mouth was, we need to make sure that's not lymphoma. And as soon as she said it, I was like, that's what it is. I just already was like,
Oh.
I just felt it like inside myself. I was like, it's most certainly that's what it is.
Mm.
So it took a whole month. I had two different biopsies. I did probably at least two or three different scans. And I was formally diagnosed July 3rd of 2024, Hodgkin's lymphoma, which they say Hodgkin's lymphoma is one of the most treatable and curable cancers, which was ironic with how it played out with me, but it still worked out because I'm in remission. But it was diagnosed stage 2A, which is also nice because it wasn't in my bones yet. Because if it's in your bones, it's automatically stage 4,
Oh,
which
wow.
just makes it like a much different chemo process. I don't know, because with what I did, maybe it wasn't, but I ended up starting, oh geez, they told me July 3rd, and I think I had my port put in within a month, I want to say. And then we started chemo like a week or two after that. It was very quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the technical chemo was ABVD, and I think I did, oh, when did I do it? I started in August. I did 8 infusions of it, and
Yeah.
they made me do another scan. And I want to say after that one, my doctor said he thought it was just residual of what was lighting up cancer wise. And so then he was like, let's take a break from chemo. We'll do another scan. I want to say it was like 6 weeks he gave me off. And by 6 weeks, I was lighting up more. So it in their terms, it came back, but for me, it was never really gone. So for them, it was that it had come back and it was starting to build again. And so we did, I want to say they made me wait even longer because I feel like I did another scan before I started chemo again. But I had so many scans, I don't even know.
Go back a little bit. Go back to you getting diagnosed and things. First of all, can you explain a little bit more about what Hodgkin's lymphoma is versus other lymphoma?
Yeah, Hodgkin's lymphoma is basically it's cancer of your lymphatic system, but it's also considered a blood cancer. So it's hard because it's double dipping a little bit, which is why they were concerned that it had gotten to my bones because your blood goes all throughout your whole body.
Yeah.
But the hard part with, I feel like there's a lot of misconceptions when it comes to cancer because sure, there are habits or there are things you could be eating or smoking or whatever that could make you more susceptible to getting cancer. But the truth is, it's just a cell that went rogue. It's one
Mm.
cell that goes rogue and it just starts overturning really fast and then it starts growing because they actually have no idea what causes Hodgkin's lymphoma. And it's also a really weird cancer because it's most common in people between the ages of 20 and 30.
Oh,
And then
that's
it goes
interesting.
in until 60 to 80. So
Oh, wow.
you're either like really young for cancer or it's older people where I feel like it's higher risk in general the longer you've lived to be susceptible to it. But yeah, they don't know what causes it. It just happens. There's no Hodgkin's lymphoma in my family, so it wasn't like a genetic thing. Like I've lost maternal my maternal grandmother and my maternal great grandmother had ovarian cancer.
Okay.
And my dad's mom, so my paternal grandmother, she had breast cancer.
Oh,
So my whole life thought if something was going to take me out, it was going to be one of those two. And then I end up getting this random cancer.
mm.
I had no idea what it even was. But I do think I was very, well, lucky in a sense because I had connections to this girl who was, I want to say she's only 1 year younger than me, but she got diagnosed about a year before I did with Hodgkin's lymphoma. And so I had someone directly to lean on with my experience and get advice and kind of understand what was going on. However, luckily for her, the first chemo that I did cleared her of her cancer and she was in remission, whereas mine came back. So my journey went much further than what hers did. But it was nice to have someone in the beginning that had an idea of what was going on.
Yeah, and then could like walk you through what to expect and things like that. Like, I know when you're embarking on stuff like that, like the doctors can tell you all day long, you're going to have this, you're going to experience that, you're going to do this, but until you've actually gone through it, you don't really fully understand it until then. So basically, your first round of chemo was supposed to put you into remission. That's the typical, that is the most common thing that happens is it's pretty
Mhm.
treatable with that type of chemo, that schedule of chemo, and then you should technically be done. And you were 28 when you were diagnosed?
Yeah, I turned 28 March 31st of 2024, and then on that same day, that birthday was when my now husband had proposed. So I was like planning my wedding, doing the whole thing. We had the resort set up And I literally think it was within the same weekend that my wedding invitations came in the mail was when my lump popped up. Like the timing was just insane. But luckily for us, we were already planning on getting married. So then we were like, let's just go. My lump popped up on Sunday. We were married by Friday.
Yeah.
Like we were not messing around because I was like, okay, it's go time. Like I need to get put on your insurance immediately. And we just
Yeah.
need to get ahead of this because at the time I was an independent contractor, sole proprietor, however you want to put it, being I had my own salon suite and I didn't have health insurance at all.
Yeah.
And I just kept saying, I'm not too worried about it. I'm young, I'm healthy. It's not going to be a problem. And then, yeah, out of nowhere, it was a problem very fast.
I know. Colin and I say that all the time. I'm like, I'm so tired of paying this stupid premium that I pay every month for us. And like, maybe we should just go without it. And I'm so afraid that the year that I cancel it or don't get it is going to be the year that something happens to us. And that's why like I just keep paying it, which is infuriating because we are young, we are healthy, we haven't needed to use it. But I swear to God, that's how that stuff works. I was on Medicaid years and years ago temporarily. I don't even know how I got on it, to be honest with you, because I thought I made way too much money. But they were like, yeah, here's some Medicaid for a couple months. And then I broke my foot that August. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I have Medicaid. It's going to cover it. And then they're like, actually, your Medicaid dropped you because you make too much money. You have no insurance. And I was like, that's because I broke my foot. If I didn't break my foot, they wouldn't have dropped
Yeah.
me.
Exactly. It's crazy.
It is crazy. So tell me a little bit about some of the emotions you were going through. You were planning your wedding, planning your future with Ben, and then this happens. And I remember like you were very scared for good reason. And then also, let's just paint this picture for people. Like she said, it took a month, right, to get your full diagnosis. So it was going in, doing these scans, and then having all that in between waiting time of being like, is it cancer? Is it not cancer? And I can't even imagine all of the things that were going through your head with that up and down. So go ahead and tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'm very much as I'm a talk it through kind of person. I have to talk to people. Any thought or feeling I have, I'm like, let me run this by a couple friends and see if this makes sense or if it's just me being a little crazy. It was hard because let me think. The first biopsy that they did on it, it was just a needle biopsy. So they essentially just kind of they stick like a hollow needle kind of into it was an inflamed lymph node technically, but it was also a tumor. And they suck some of the cells out and it almost sounds like a little like a Nerf gun going off. Like it's a loud plastic pop.
Ooh, that's
It's
scary.
just sucking out fluid and like
Ooh.
cells essentially. And so that first one that they did, they were like, there's cells that look like Hodgkin's lymphoma, but they have to see the exact cell to be able to like formally diagnose. So that's why they ended up just slicing it open and cutting it out anyway. But it was ridiculous because I think the first thing that my general practitioner provider made me do was it was an ultrasound on it.
Mhm.
And they were like, yeah, we can't tell what that is with an ultrasound. So then I had to do a CT scan with contrast, and they were like, we still don't know what that is. So they did the first biopsy. They were like, we see hints of it, but we're not sure. So then they cut it open, and that's when they were like, it's confirmed. This is what it is.
I guess you want them to be sure so that they take
Yeah.
the proper course of action.
Yeah.
But what a roller coaster.
Yeah. And just having so many appointments and having to wait for it because walking out of that first appointment with her when she said we have to make sure that's not lymphoma, she's like, I'm going to order an ultrasound on that and I'm going to make it stat. So in my head, I was like, if it's stat, I'm going to walk out to my car and call and try and schedule that.
Yeah.
And that first day, just trying to get that first appointment, they were like, it hasn't come through to us yet. We can't schedule it yet. And then I called the next hour, still nothing. Next hour, still nothing. I think it ended up taking me till at least the next day to get that first one on the book. So it's just like being in the in-between and waiting. And then you're like, okay, so do I have cancer or do I have something else? Because I had one of our friends, Eli, was telling me that the same lump had appeared in the same spot for a client of hers, and it had turned out to be cat scratch fever.
Oh, I remember when we were talking about
So
that.
then for a minute, I was like, okay, so maybe it's not cancer. I do have 2 cats. This could all, maybe it's not, it could be okay, it could be okay. Obviously, it was not what I had hoped to be the lesser of the bad things. What can you do?
Yeah.
It's just not fun waiting in the in between for sure. And then on top of that, it was like, okay, I'm trying to plan this wedding. So what am I going to do? But it was ironic because the first appointment that I had with my oncologist, he was like, you should really only be going through treatment for about 6 months. And so I was like, okay, then just tell it to me straight. I'm supposed to be getting married in May. We were going to go to Cancun. Do you think that could still happen?
And
he
that's
was like,
May of 2025, right?
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. And so he was like, I don't see why you couldn't have a wedding. He was like, you're just probably going to be bald. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and cancel that. We can worry about the wedding later.
Yeah.
We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But it was ironic because with the diagnosis and the stage and everything that I was at, I think the numbers were like 80% of people only need to do this first round of chemo and they're good to go. There's only 20% of people that it comes back and then you have to go further. So in my mind, I was like, we should be good to go.
Yeah.
After those first few scans, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, how could I possibly be the 20%?
So did they ever say anything about like why they think that happened? Like the chemo didn't work or
essentially, I think what had happened was when I had that scan after my 8 rounds, he was like, okay, we can either wait 6 weeks and scan again and see if that spot is gone that's still lighting up in the scan. Or we could do 4 more rounds of chemo and then do a scan after that and see if that works.
Okay.
And it's interesting being at this point in it because you always know better ahead of time. Like once you're past it, you could always wish you did something different. But
Yeah.
I had told him, you're the doctor, you're the professional. What do I know? So I was like, whatever you think is what I'm going to do. And he was like, I think it's just residual. Let's wait, scan again, and we'll see what happens. Now I wish I had done 4 more rounds because who knows? Because maybe that 4 more rounds could have killed it all off and made it to where I didn't need to do the rest of what I ended up doing. Hindsight's always 2020.
And I'm really frustrated with that. That's actually been a theme that's come up in the last few interviews that I've done because I'm like, why? Why does hindsight have to be 2020? Why can't it be like right now I'm looking forward and I have my crystal ball? Like it's so frustrating. And then you'll beat your head against the wall looking back on that, trying to figure out what if I did that or what if I did this. And then I don't know, for me, that would bring up a lot of anger emotions of I might have just been able to do that and would have worked and been fine and moved on with my life. But
yeah. And I think back then when I was in that current timeline of that frame of time, I was really angry that we didn't do it. But looking back at it now, that time that I had off, I was free for Thanksgiving and I wasn't on chemo. I got to go through all of December and all of the holidays and I wasn't on chemo. And then I think my scan that we did after waiting those extra like 6 weeks or whatever was like December 28th.
oh yeah.
And that was when it came back and it was like, it was back. It's coming back and it's like growing and it's building up steam. So I'm going to give you, I think for whatever reason, we waited even longer because and that's when I got my second biopsy because the lump came back in the exact same spot.
And weren't they wanting to reconfirm that it was Hodgkin's lymphoma and not a different type of lymphoma?
Yes, because technically once you do chemo, you're at risk for secondary cancers from chemo because the only thing that chemo is just poison going into your body. And they can't choose where the chemo goes to do its work. So you're just fingers crossed it's doing what it's supposed to do. And it's not just like destroying everything else in its path. So then, yeah, I basically had to wait long enough for my lump to return in the exact same spot, which was so weird. And then they cut it back open, popped it back out again, and they were like, nope, still Hodgkin's lymphoma, still the exact same thing. But because that all took so long, I got to go to Disney World with a bunch of my girlfriends for a fun little weekend before I started chemo again. So it's, yes, it was bad, but it's also, it gave me like a little window of life of free time before I had to jump back into it. So it's, sure, it wasn't the best, but it all works out.
Yeah. So this next round, which was
Yes.
pretty intense. Yeah. Talk us through that.
The next round was basically, it was, I don't know how to describe this because I'm not an oncologist, but they have like cancer oncology meetups, I suppose.
Okay.
Where they like share all their new info and all their new stuff that they've learned from trying like trial run chemos and new ways of treating things. So the next round that I did was fresh off of the studies, essentially. So it was chemotherapy plus immunotherapy. And so immunotherapy, it's, sometimes you see the commercials on TV for Keytruda. That's
Okay.
what it is.
Okay.
So it basically beefs up your own immune system to be able to recognize the cancer cells and fight them off itself.
Oh.
And then I also had chemo at the same time. So it was a little bit of both to fight it off, which I only had to do the one, I think it was like what, six weeks of it maybe. It wasn't as many infusions as I did the first time.
Of the chemo or the immunotherapy?
They were both together.
Oh,
so that
okay.
was like my second round was both of them together. So it was like, I think I went my first round of chemo, I went every other Friday. This round I went every week, but it was a different mixture every time that I went.
Okay.
So the 1 week would be my chemo infusions. The next week would be only a couple of the chemos plus the immunotherapy.
Okay.
So once I did that one and we did the scan, they basically told me at the beginning, like, you're going to do this chemo plus immunotherapy. And afterwards, once you're in remission, we'll do a stem cell transplant. Because if I had stopped after the chemo plus the immunotherapy, I might have been in remission, but I had a 50-50 chance that it would come back.
Oh, wow.
But if you do the stem cell transplant, your chance of it coming back drops significantly. However, I don't like to think about numbers because I was already on the short end of the stick for the first round of the 80-20% chance. So I was like, don't tell me nothing about percentages. I was like, I don't want to know. Just do whatever you're going to do. So
just do whatever to make the percentage as high as possible for me not getting this ever again.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, I did the chemo plus immunotherapy, and then that scan that I did was the first scan I had ever gotten that was like, everything is shrinking, we're seeing less activity, like it worked. Because every scan I had leading up to that, it was never good news. So I was just like, I was so scared of that scan. I was like, please, I don't care who I have to pray to, I don't care what I gotta do. I was like, this has got to be a good scan. But that one was a clean, I think there's this thing called the Deauville score. It's 1 through 4 or 5, I want to say. And if you get a 3, 3's right in the middle. It's working, but it's not working as good as we'd want it to. 4 is it's working, but it's also still growing. And 5 is it's still growing. There's nothing good. So you want to be a 3 or lower, essentially, because a 1 would be that like complete, like total, what's the word they use? No disease detected. It all worked perfectly. 2's, there's a little bit left, but it worked really good. And then 3's like right in the middle. I continuously got 4s, continuously. Like every scan I had, I got a 4. So then this last scan, after the immunotherapy plus the chemo, they didn't put my Deauville score on there.
Oh.
So I was like, what the heck? What am I reading? But I had an appointment with my oncologist the next day.
Oh, okay.
And so I was like, what? I don't understand, because all you can read essentially then is like the measurements of your tumors and if it had shrunk versus had it grown, and it had gone down. So I was like, I would assume that's good news, but I have no clue because they didn't put my stinking score on there. And so when I went to see my oncologist, I was like, am I past the point of getting a Deauville score, or what? Why was that not on there? And he's like, I had the same question. He was like, I had to message the tech that read it and assessed it. He essentially just forgot to put it on there. He was like, you're a 2. And so I was like, oh my God. Oh my God. I was like, perfect. That's great. So from there on, it was essentially, he was passing me off to my transplant doctor up at the Health Anschutz, it's a teaching hospital. So it's the CU, their medical hospital. It's a children's hospital, and it's a UC Health. It's like one of the biggest hospitals in Denver. And he was like, if I was going through this and I was you, this is the doctor I would want to see. This is the hospital I would want to be at. So you're in good hands. So I was like, okay, so let's go for the next steps.
And tell me about the next steps.
So the next steps was a stem cell transplant, and it was considered, I'm going to butcher how you say this. It was autologous, because I was taking the stem cells from myself and I was giving them back to myself.
Okay.
Some people, depending on your it's common in blood cancers to do a transplant. But some people, especially with leukemia, you typically have to get a donor of stem cell transplants from someone else that matches you. But so then they say you're more at risk for your body rejecting those stem cells because they're not yours.
Okay.
So I went into it thinking I was going to be good to go because I was getting my own stem cells. So this should be easy peasy, lemon squeezy. There's not really much chance for rejection at all because it was my own cells.
Yeah.
But it was a pretty crazy process. I already had a port underneath my skin on the right side of my chest. So on the left side, they put in a trifusion line, which is essentially just a tube that's half inside your body, half outside of your body. And then you have 3 tubes hanging out of your chest, which was nightmare.
Oh.
Sorry, my cat's being loud.
No worries.
They put the trifusion line in on March, I want to say it was like the 28th, maybe 25th, 28th, somewhere around that time. So I had it half in, half out with all the tubes. And we went into first I had to do shots to stimulate your bone marrow to produce more stem cells.
Okay.
It was like a week leading up to it. And then I went up to Anschutz, and they hook you up to this machine, and one tube is pulling your blood out of your body, and then in the machine it's cycling out all of your stem cells.
Oh.
And then it's giving you your blood back into a second tube that doesn't have stem cells in it anymore. And then they essentially take your stem cells, put them in a freezer, and they wait until you're ready to have them given back to you.
Okay.
So then once that's all finished, you check in for your hospital stay, which I started on April 8th. And they give you 10 chemo infusions in a matter of 4 or 5 days. And it's basically just supposed to knock you out, clear out your old immune system, and clear out anything that's left of whatever could have been hanging out Hodgkin's lymphoma wise. And then once you're at the bottom of the line, like white blood cells are at 0, red blood cells are really low, like no immune system, no nothing.
That's scary to force your body into
insane.
that.
It's actually insane. Once you're basically down as low as you can be, they give you your stem cells back. And then once your stem cells are back in your body, you're basically just coasting it out until your body reconfigures and adjusts, because the transplant is essentially wiping out your old immune system and giving you a brand new one.
Wild. And that was all via blood, you said? So when they gave you your stem cells back, was that like they just put that back into your blood, or how did that work?
Yeah, they just put it back into your bloodstream essentially, and then they need to go into your bones so your bone marrow can start remaking new stem cells and blood cells, white and red, to just rebuild everything in your body essentially.
And
Um,
this process was supposed to take how long?
oh,
Supposed.
the average person who does the auto transplant should only be there for 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay. And because we know Paige is not the average person in this process,
Yeah, I
what
was there
happens?
for 43 days
Hmm.
and it was a hot mess. It
Mhm.
included 2 trips to the ICU. I was technically on life support, which is crazy because honestly, I was so out of it while this was happening, which I'm thankful that I was because I think I wasn't processing anything fully.
Mm.
Like when the first time it all happened funny. The first time I was supposed to get checked out, they were like, okay, we're going to get you out of here. You're going to go to your apartment across the street, and then you'll just come back 2 to 3 times a week. We'll keep up with your blood numbers and make sure your immune system's coming back like it's supposed to.
And that apartment was just, that was actually part of the hospital, it just was not a hospital like room. It was
Yeah.
just nearby the hospital so you could continue to go back and forth.
Yeah, it's funded by the hospital and through all of their different like donors and stuff that they have. The floor that we were on, that we had our apartment on, was only for essentially cancer patients that were
Okay.
undergoing different transplants.
Okay.
So yeah, the first time they were trying to discharge me, I couldn't tell you what happened. My body went into freak mode, and that was the first time I went to the ICU.
So what was happening like with your body?
So essentially, what I had is what they call engraftment syndrome, which is when your old immune system is fighting head on with that new immune system that's trying to take over, which now we know it was because of that immunotherapy I had done, because that immunotherapy beefed up my immune system. So then the beefed up immune system's trying to get wiped out by the new one, and they were just going like head to head.
Okay.
So
And what did
essentially,
that feel like to you? What were your symptoms?
I had a rash that was like from the chest all the way to my toes.
Oh,
It
wow.
was just like red, like little red dots all over your body. And then I started fevering, which is the big
Mm.
one. But I was having like, I was fevering like 3 to 4 times a day at the peak of this happening. And it was not coming down or going away. Let me get this cat off this desk.
No worries. Cats are fine.
It was basically fevering and the rash. And then,
Okay.
but the problem is when you're in the transplant center, when you're in that unit on the hospital, every third time you fever, they do a full check for making sure you don't have any infections
Mm.
because I didn't have the ability to fight any infections off. So you would think, since I had 2 ports in my chest, it would be easy to get a blood draw, which
Mm.
those ones were. But they also want to get a blood draw from your arm for some reason. It was like to make sure it wasn't traveling or something. But because of all the chemo that I had done and because of that transplant, my veins essentially shrunk down and hid further inside my body.
Man.
So every time they tried to poke me, it took 3 to 4 tries, 3 to 4 different nurses. They would get the vein finder out. One time they had an ultrasound machine out. Like it was madness.
Ugh. I mean, I have small veins to begin with, and then like whenever I've had surgeries where you have to like fast or whatever and you can't have anything to eat or drink, so you're completely dehydrated, and then they try to get those damn veins. Oh my God, it's
Yeah.
infuriating when they poke you so many times and they can't find it. And
Yeah.
ugh.
And it was a hot mess because like I was used to getting blood draws because I had to, every time you do chemo, you have to get a blood draw within, it was like 24 to 48 hours before they did chemo because they had to make sure your immune system could even handle getting more poison put into your body
Mm.
essentially and still not put you in the hospital. But every single phlebotomist I had gone to, I had no issues. So I was confused because I'm normally an easy poke. Why is it taking everyone a million tries to get to my veins and to get to my blood? And then I'm also like, just pull from my port. Is this
Yeah.
necessary? Because
Is
I
it
was,
really different blood if it's coming from the arm?
I don't think so, but I'm not a medical professional. I don't know.
I do
It's,
know when I've had surgeries and they've hooked me up to IVs. If they can't get my ones in my elbow and my arm, I have had them go through my wrist before, but they always say they don't like that. So
No.
I don't, but like they'll do it if they have to because they got to get anesthesia in you somehow. And I actually had at one of my surgeries, they poked me in the wrist and they're like, we're just going to get the anesthesia pumping and then we're going to move it. So to your arm. So I don't know what it is about those. We need a medical person to come and tell us
Yeah.
what the deal is with that because I don't
Yeah.
understand that either. Because I have one or two veins on my right arm that have been poked a gajillion times through all my IVF stuff, and they're wrecked from all of it. But there's
Yeah.
literally no other option. Nobody can get any of the other ones. So,
It would be bad. And they would start, like, sometimes they would try to get one in the top of my hand or like closer to your wrist. And they would start to get blood and they would be like, oh, we just blew that vein out. Like, that one's, it's not going to work there. We're going to have to do something else. Like, the bruises that I had on my arms, it was insane. It
do you
was
think
out of
it
control.
bruised even more so because of what was going on in your body too?
100 times worse because I didn't have any platelets, which is what platelets is what makes your blood clot together so you don't bleed out. I
Okay.
didn't have platelets. So like the bruises were bigger and they lasted way longer because my body just didn't have the ability to heal itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a hot mess for sure. I never quite understood why they had to do that, but yeah, it was every third fever. So it was all the time because I was fevering constantly.
Oh man. So then what made them decide to put you in the ICU?
The first time it was my discharge day, I got up to go to the bathroom. And when I came back, my blood pressure just tanked. And I felt lightheaded. I felt like I was going to pass out, but it just was not recovering at all. And so, what they do is there's a team of people that are in the ICU that will travel up to whatever floor you're at and they'll assess you and they decide if they're taking you down or not.
Okay.
So, they came in, they were monitoring my heart rate, my blood pressure, and then they were like, yeah, you're going to go. So they have to wait till there's like a bed or a room available in the ICU. And I got really lucky because the nurse that I had in the ICU the first time I went down, she used to be a transplant nurse.
Okay.
So she was like, you're in good hands. I know exactly what's going on. I've seen this, like, I've been through it. I know what's happening in your body.
Awesome.
Like, it's going to be okay. So, off the bat with her, I was like, okay, like, I'm not worried then. Go ahead, girl. And so they immediately hooked me up to, I already had IVs, but I got hooked up to even more. They put what they call an A line into my wrist right here. And it's just to track your blood pressure, like literally in your veins.
Oh,
essentially.
wow.
Because they needed to keep a better track on my blood pressure and my heart rate and my body temperature. Because I think that time my temperature was like 104 and it took hours to come down, like hours. And so at that point, they had given me so many different drugs because when my fevers were coming up, I used to have my whole body would shake head to toe and it was like uncontrollable. So then it's exhausting me because my muscles are tensing up so much and for so long. So they would give you different like painkillers essentially to make your body stop shaking so you can actually relax.
Like muscle relaxers. Yeah.
And then to just try to make your body calm down so your fever could actually come down. And so that's when they had me on the IV drip of what they consider life support drugs.
Oh.
Because the nurse like came up to my head and she's, your body's working really hard right now. Like it's fighting really hard. And I'm like, okay, because I don't know anything. And she was like, you're technically on life support. And I was like, okay.
Maybe don't tell me that.
What am I going to do about it? So they had me on, they have these like cooling pads. And she took all my blankets away, no blankets. She made me lay on top of this cooling pad. So then I'm like shivering, shaking instead of my fevers coming shaking.
Yeah.
And so I was on that thing for hours. By the time like I was ready to come off of it, I could barely even feel how cold it was anymore because like my whole body temperature had just adjusted, which is also funny because I guess there's not a lot of science proving that those cool blankets to cool you down, does it go hand in hand with your temperature dropping? They don't even know. So it could have just been torture for the sake of torture, but at that point, what can you do? So I had the tube in my arm tracking my blood pressure. I'm hooked up to a bunch of different monitors. And the first day in the ICU, I was there for 3 or 4 days, I want to say. And then once I was clear from there, they're like, okay, we're sending you back up to the transplant floor. And I'm like, all right. So then I was on the transplant floor again for maybe 5 or 6 days. And then they were like, okay, we're going to get you ready for discharge. You look like you're doing good. You look like everything's doing okay. It'll be fine. Within 30 minutes to an hour, same thing starts happening again. Like the fever's starting to come back up really hard. I'm having all the shakes again. And at that point, from my first ICU visit, when they took that A line out, my whole hand was swollen. You couldn't even see the knuckles on my fingers.
Oh, wow.
I had a bruise from my wrist down to here.
Oh my gosh.
What do they call it? Whatever the bruise is called with the blood. It'll come to me. But anyway, like I said, I was in a teaching hospital. The lady that was coming to put in that A line was teaching somebody. So there were two people there at the same time. I was on so many drugs at the time, and like they had my hand literally taped to the bed so that I wouldn't move when they were trying to put this A line in.
Oh my gosh.
So I don't like needles. I don't like seeing these things. So like my eyes were closed, my face was away. I don't want to know. They stabbed me so many times. My dad had to leave the room because it was like making him sick. And so they were like, we don't, make sure you're careful. Don't move this wrist too much. Because if you pop one of those veins, it'll be really bad. And then it'll bruise like crazy, blah, blah, blah. So when my nurse finally took it out, whole hand is swollen, can't see knuckles, no nothing. I was bruised real bad, both arms. Because also every time that I fevered, they were taking more blood samples or trying. And so I was just scarred, essentially.
Like a pincushion.
From being in the ICU. I was like, I don't want to go back there ever again. That was horrible. Aside from my nurse, because my nurse was amazing and so was my night nurse. But everyone else that came in to get something from me, I was just like, please leave me alone. So when it started happening again for the second time, same time when they're telling me I'm going to discharge. So at this point, I'm like, stop telling me that I'm going to get out of this hospital. Because every time you tell me, something bad happens. So the second time it started happening again, they're like, okay, we're going to call the ICU team up here. And I was like panicking. I was like, no, I don't want to go back there. I was like, please, I do not want to go back there. And ironically enough, the girl that came to check me from the ICU floor, exact same girl as the first time.
Okay.
So I like looked up at her. I was like, please, I do not want to go back. Do not make me go back there. And she was like, you're going to be okay, but you're probably going to go down there. I was like, oh. So they brought me back down. That stay was much shorter. And I was on the life support drugs was essentially to support my blood pressure not dropping too low.
Okay.
I got put on it again, but it was for a much shorter amount of time. I didn't need it as long. So you could tell my body was recuperating at least a little bit. I had the exact same night nurse as I had the first time. So it was like there was a little bit of comfortability in that. And then my first ICU nurse came in. She's like, girl, what are you doing here again? I was like, I don't know.
You're like, believe me, I don't want to be here.
Yeah. I was like, is this normal? Is this okay? Am I normal? And it's horrible because the only thing they can tell you is everybody's different. Everyone's different. Everyone's bodies are different. Everyone's immune systems are different. There's no like cut and dry. This is yes, this is no. There's really no telling.
Yeah.
And so that time I was only there for 2 nights, 2 or 3 nights maybe. Sent me back up to the transplant floor. I was probably there for another week or so. And then they were like, okay. I remember it because it was so funny. Because my night nurse comes in and he's okay. I think they're talking about discharging you out there. How does that feel? How does that sound? And I was like, I don't know. And he was like, what do you mean you don't know? And I was like, every time you guys try to discharge me, something bad happens. I was like, I'm really not going to think about it. I'm not going to get my hopes up. There's no way. So that time I did make it out of the hospital. I made it to the apartment across the street. I was only there for 1 night, because the next morning I started having my shakes again, which is just, for me, it was indicative that I was going to fever again. And if you're
Yeah.
going to fever, you got to go back to the hospital because they got to make sure it's not an infection of any sort because you don't have anything to fight it off. So I was home for, not home, I was in that apartment for one night. We went back to the hospital the next morning. They start trying to take the blood, do the blood test and everything. And they were like, we're gonna admit you. Like, you're gonna go back up to the transplant floor. I was like, you have got to be kidding me. Because at that rate, it was well into May by that point. And like I had gotten checked in on April 8th. So I was just like, I'm never gonna get out of here.
And it was supposed to be like about 2 weeks, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It was horrible. So they checked me in. That time, I think, again, I think I was only there for a couple days. It was only like 4 or 5 days. And they were like, all right, we're going to get you out of here. So I was like, okay. I'm like, don't get all worked up. Don't say anything. Don't let me ring no bell, no nothing. Just get me downstairs. And so when I checked out that final time, we were in the apartment for maybe a week.
Okay.
I don't even know if it was a full 7 days, to be completely honest, because I went in to get my blood drawn for, I think it was only my third appointment in there. And they were like, you're going home. And I was like, like, what do you home? Like,
And don't play with me.
Yeah. And they were like, no, like, you've been here way too long. Your numbers are steady. They're increasing the way they're supposed to. You haven't had a fever in a week. Like, you're getting out of here. You're going home. I was like, oh my God. But I'm very much, I don't want to get my hopes up.
Well, you've been wrecked so many times through this process.
Yes. I was like, I'll believe it when I step through the front door of my house. Like, I was like, there's no way. But thankfully, it did work out. After, I think in grand total, I was up there for 43 days.
And it was supposed to be 14.
It should have been like, 14 to 21 max. And I was up there for 43, which is insanity. But yeah, finally got to come home. I went to see my oncologist down here in the Springs like a couple days after I got home. And he was like, I am so sorry. I've never had a patient go through what you went through. I didn't even know what engraftment syndrome was. I had no clue because he wasn't the transplant doctor. He was my oncologist. So that's not his specialty.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's not your fault. Like, how could you have known?
Sure.
And he was like, that chemo, that second type of chemo that you did was very new. We haven't had a lot of experience of patients going from that chemo that you did with the immunotherapy to the transplant.
You're like, great, thanks for making me an experiment.
Yeah, because the whole time I was thinking, like, could you not have warned me? You need to give people a warning. You need to give people a warning. They didn't know enough to give me a warning.
How did that make you feel? Was that kind of infuriating to a point?
I was more angry when I was in the hospital and right when I got home. I felt like once I talked to my oncologist down here, I was more, okay, that makes sense. Like, I was essentially a test subject of sorts.
Had you known that in the beginning, would you have gone that route still, do you think?
I would say there were a lot of times once I got past like being in there for 25 days, I had a lot of like remorse and regret. I was like, I never should have done this. I never should have done this. I probably should have just taken my 50-50 chance. This is crazy. But I also there was no end in sight for me at that point in time. Just because like I did keep going to the ICU or something else would happen or I would fever again. Because every time I fevered, I was automatically going to be locked into being there for at least 3 more days. Because you had to go that long without fevering for them to even consider letting you go.
Oh, man.
So it was just like, it just kept going and repeating itself. And so there were a lot of times in the middle where I was like, I'm not ever getting out of this hospital. I was like, this is going to be it for me. I just did not know what to do. But it got to the point where my doctors, because I mean, they do rounds every single day. Yeah. So not only while you're in the hospital, you have the, oh, what are they called? The medical assistants or whoever, not nurses, but the step below. They were coming in and taking my vitals every 4 hours through the night and everything. So you're getting woken up at, they're coming at 9, and then they're coming around midnight, and then they're coming around 3 or 4 a.m. And then by the time you hit 6, 7 in the morning, that's when the doctors are coming and doing their rounds. And so one nurse, I think they might be considered physician's assistants, but whatever. One person would come in and say, okay, your numbers are looking like this today. We might consider taking you off steroids. We might consider taking you off this, that. I'll confirm when the doctor comes in. And then they would come back in with the doctor in an hour. I got to the point where my doctor was walking in and he was saying, I'm sorry. And I was like, is this normal? And he was like, it's science. Nothing's normal. We really don't know. Like, in my head, I'm like, this is supposed to be one of the most prestigious hospitals. Like, it's a teaching hospital. Like, what do you mean? You can't give me any information? So it was just very, like, not reassuring.
It's also so interesting because I feel like I've talked to a fair amount of people who have either been through cancer themselves or have had someone very close to them go through it. And everybody says we think our medical system, or not the system, but like our science of the medical world has come so far, which it has, really.
Yes.
However, I think we think in our minds like, oh, you do chemo and cancer goes away. And it's just that simple. And when they're literally telling you like, we don't know, we don't know, you're like, what the fuck? You're supposed to know by now.
You're like, well, if you don't know and I don't know, then who knows?
Yeah, I mean, it's because, like you said, every body is different. Every person is, everybody's going to react differently to these things. And hope for the most part, you save people's lives. But like, there's, like you said, there's that small percentage where it doesn't work or whatever. And I just think it's so interesting that we think until you're immersed in the medical world, you think we've come so much further than we probably actually have. But we also have come a long ways, right? Like when you go back 50 years compared to now, we have, it's just not quite what we think in our heads.
I think being outside of the medical profession, you definitely are more like they know what they're doing. They 100% know. They've probably seen so many different things and they know what's going on. Whereas like in reality, my case will probably be part of a medical journal, like part of a study. They will talk about me, not using like my name specifically, but they'll be like, I once had a patient, and I'm going to be the examples that they give people. Because when I went back, fun fact, when I went back for my scan and then to see my transplant doctor again, he told me that because of my case and because of how this transplant went for me, they are changing their regimen on how they give people steroids, and they're changing it completely because of how it affected me. Because when I was on the steroids, I was not fevering. I would feel way better, and it would be like helping my body get through it. And then they'd be like, we're going to taper you off. Every single time they tapered me off, I was in the ICU. So he was like, because of you, the regimen's different. Everyone is going to do steroids they're going to start it earlier. They're going to do them way longer, and we're going to taper them off way further down the line because it eliminates so much risk. Yeah. Because they would tell me like, okay, today's going to be your last day of steroids. And I was always like, oh no, oh my God, shit's about to hit the fan again. What do you mean you're going to taper me off? And it's, your body enough that you feel like you should be able to be like, hey, maybe we don't do that. At the same time, you're like, I'm in this such a prestigious, well-known hospital. They would know what's better for me. Like, why would I say something?
Yeah.
Whereas like, I will say in retrospect, for anyone that's going through this or go through anything like that, you know your body better than anyone else knows because you're living in it and you know what's happening. And especially if it's like a repeat occurrence type of thing, like I think it might seem daunting to speak up or make an input or anything like that. But at the same time, you might as well just do it, because holding it in and not, you could be like me where you go to the ICU 2 times and then you get out once and then you're right back in. You're just waiting. But I'm thankful that anyone else that does this from here on out is probably going to have a much easier go of it than I
Gosh, I
did.
hope so. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember when they had you on steroids for the first round of chemo, right? Like you would do your chemo, they would put
Mhm.
steroids in it, or you would take them after for a few days. And I remember, I think that helped you feel significantly better throughout that process too.
Oh yeah. My oncologists and my nurses were always shocked at how little side effects I was having with my chemo. And I 100% would say it was because of the dexamethasone is the name of the one that I was on. But when you do chemo, you would get your pre-meds, which was I would get Tylenol and then I would get Benadryl and then I would get a bunch of different steroids. And then they would do the chemo. And those steroids would stay in your system for probably at least a day or two. But on top of that, then when I got home, I would take the pills to follow up. And it's ironic because the first, what was it? I think I always did chemo on Friday, and I would always throw up Wednesday night leading into Thursday morning.
The
I was like,
following.
yeah, and I was always like, this is the weirdest thing ever. I don't understand. First time I thought it was because I got like food poisoning from Chipotle or something.
Yeah.
It happened the next week, and then it happened. And I met up with my oncologist, and he was like, that's breakthrough nausea from your steroids wearing off. That's from your chemo. That's what you're supposed to take your nausea pills for. And I was like, what? I was like, I had no idea. You didn't have food poisoning from Chipotle. That was 100% your chemo. He was like, so how about when you go to sleep on those Wednesday nights following your chemo infusions, take one of your anti-nausea pills and you should be good. I never threw up again.
Okay.
I think there was a lot of things that I wasn't blaming chemo when I could have been blaming chemo. And I was like, no, it's probably this, it's probably this. No, it's 100% the poison that they're putting into your body. It's because all of the meds that they had you on to help you not feel, that was the last little blip that you would have had the whole time were you not taking that. But it was ironic because on the next round of chemo that I did, I got significantly less. Like I was not taking the dexamethasone at home. I was only taking it there. But I also wasn't as nauseous with that second round either. Like that first round was a lot. They were shocked that I was having so few side effects because apparently that's like a very heavy and hard regimen that I was on. I had no idea.
Maybe you were having such few side effects because it wasn't working.
Maybe that's who's to say. Or they could have been like up in my dosage or something to make it work better. So yeah.
Wild. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody's body is different. Alan, for example, doesn't like caffeine doesn't affect him at all. Where like it
Mhm.
spazzes me the hell out. So it's just like
Yeah,
interesting how all our bodies metabolize a lot of that stuff differently and how it affects us differently. Ugh.
for sure.
Wild ride. But then
Yeah.
how long ago did you get your news that you were in remission from this recording?
It would have been a week ago from tomorrow. But yeah, just about 7 days ago. Officially, fully in remission, no issues. I've assumed that was the case though, because last time my little lumpy popped up so quick
Right.
after not being on chemo for a certain amount of weeks that I was like, I haven't been on chemo since my last chemo infusion. If I was in there on the 8th, it would have been like the 12th or 13th, maybe.
Mm.
Like 13th or 14th of April. So I was like, if something was going to pop up, it would have happened already. So the
Yeah.
fact that it hadn't, I definitely felt a lot more confident going into that scan and into that appointment. Plus, I was like, there's no way I just went through hell and back and you're going to tell me that didn't work.
Do you know what they would have done if that was the case? Do you have any idea? Did they ever say, okay, if this doesn't work, then this is the next course of action?
No, no,
Jesus.
they never said anything like that. So I can't even fathom. I don't even know.
No,
But
man. What
yeah.
a wild ride.
Hi, friends. Sorry so much for this interruption, but this interview was so amazing that it went on for 2 hours. And I like to keep my episodes around about an hour. So if you would like to hear the rest of Paige's story and journey with cancer, please tune in next week for part 2 of her story. I think you will find it very fascinating, and I hope you've enjoyed part 1, and we'll see you next week on part 2. Talk to you soon. Bye.